In this video I will talk about my drip irrigation system that I built for my raspberry bed. Now the bed I created in another video, so check that out. But was this irrigation system really worth it? In this video I will tell you, so let's begin. So in this pretty big bed that actually was a swale before, I planted around 100 plants in two 15-meter long rows, so a total of 30 meters. But very early on, when I planted this, I realized that I will need to water this, and I don't want to water it by hand. Because first of all, raspberries are very thirsty, and this is the driest part of my garden basically. And second of all, it takes so much time to water a bed like this. So I thought, what is the best way to irrigate this bed? And I came to the conclusion that drip irrigation with a thick layer of mulch on top would be absolutely perfect, because it's easy and it's going to be very low evaporation. So that's exactly what I've done. I started by putting some mulch. In my case I used straw, and then I laid out the drip tape, which was pretty annoying, I must say. It's very hard because, you know, it's super thin. But then I cut it to size and put on the connectors, and that was really it. It's not very hard. So I then buried it under the straw, so it will have almost no evaporation. But essentially how this works is that this tape that I'm talking about, it has emitters every 30 centimeters. And these emitters output exactly 3.6 liters per hour with the pressure that I use, which is 1 bar. Now, because I use rainwater and a very powerful pump, the pump creates way too much pressure, so I need to have a pressure reducer in order for them to not explode basically. So I connected that just before the drip tape, as you can see. Now, how much time does this save? Well, a lot actually. The time it saves is pretty significant, because watering this by hand would take so long. Try to put it into perspective, a 30-meter long swath of raspberries that you need to water like twice a week. That's gonna take probably an hour a week. Like, watering that by hand would take so much time, even with a hose. And don't even get me started on using 10-liter watering cans. That would be so many trips back and forth from the tank. And you also have to wait for the water to fill it up. So like, that's just impossible. But now compare that to just having to put a hose into the drip system and just let it be. Put in a timer on how long you want to water, which of course depends on the plant. I will do probably around 50 minutes 2 times a week, and I'm going to change that based on how the plants respond. And what I also like is that you can just do other things while it's watering. For example, it's watering right now actually. So even though watering by hand can get pretty fun, it also gets very repetitive. But it doesn't only save time, there's also another thing. And that is water, of course. It saves so much water compared to watering by hand. Because when you water from a hose, for example, a pretty big part of the water just blows away because of the fine mist that is created. So that is just not effective at all. And also, when you water from the top, you first have to get the straw wet before it can go into the ground. So what happens is that a lot of the water gets stuck in the straw. So that is just completely useless as well. And also, when you water by hand, it's very easy to get too much water at the same time. And what happens then, because dry soil gets hydrophobic, the water will just run off from the spot where you want to water. So that is just extremely annoying as well. So basically it's a win-win situation using drip irrigation, because you get the water exactly where you want it and without having a lot of evaporation. But quickly before I finish, I need to talk about something that you have to do in the winter. Now, you don't really have to do a lot of maintenance, but in the winter at least you have to blow out the system to get rid of all the water so it doesn't freeze. And of course this only matters for the people who live in zones where the temperatures get down below freezing. And also you have to take in the pressure regulator, because it apparently can't survive frost. Probably because the water gets stuck and the membrane in it just explodes, I don't know. But that's basically all you have to do, so do that. Now, with all of this said, I'd say that this is completely worth it if you want to irrigate a larger piece of land and at the same time save a lot of water and time. And it also was pretty inexpensive, and it was easy to set up, apart from that drip tape that can blow away pretty easily. But when you have it in the ground and fill it with water, it's completely fine. So I will probably install more of this in the future, but we'll of course see how it holds up over time. So yeah, that is essentially everything about my new raspberry drip irrigation system, and hopefully I'll get tons of beautiful raspberries this year and every year after this. And what's pretty fun is that the flowers have already started opening, so I'm seeing some bumblebees pollinating it, which is super beautiful. So subscribe if this inspires you and if you learned something. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.